How to fight keeping up with the Joneses. If you can master this, the world is your oyster.
It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Hey, Money Guy family, it's your host, Brian Preston, helping you go beyond common sense to stretch that dollar in your back pocket as far as possible. Joined by Mr. Bo Hansen. Go check out the website, moneyguy.com. And you're missing out if you're not checking out our YouTube channel as well. And then connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, all the other social media outlets. We're there to connect with you. Bo, this is an exciting one.
Yeah, I'm actually really pumped about this one too.
This is one, there's so many things out there that conventional wisdom has people thinking they're making the right decision.
Right.
But they don't realize how much that the behavioral finance side of human nature is pushing them in the direction they don't need to go.
In the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Actually,
So we're going to help you on how do you create strategies? How do you have tools in your financial toolbox that helps you stay on track and not worry about what those Joneses are doing? We all hear about keeping up with the Joneses. Who are these people? And then what are some of the things that could be leading you astray on your mental mindset that you just need to have to kind of as a foundational knowledge? And here's what I like. When I was doing show prep, because I wrote this show 6 months ago, 7 months ago.
It started
it just
a while
sat
back.
out there for months. I don't know why Bo kept telling me he didn't like it.
Well, come on now. Well, it's because it was awful. And then it got a lot better.
So it's gotten a lot better. And I put in some statistics that's going to really help, I think, inoculate you to what's going on with these Joneses.
And this is what I think is beautiful about this, too, is that everyone struggles with this. Now, we might struggle with it in different ways. And so we're going to talk about, there are really great savers out there who struggle with the Joneses, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But I think this hits everyone, which makes it a super valuable show, I think.
And then I'm going to close out the show. We're going to do something. We have this whole abundance mindset, this whole, we call it the abundance cycle, where we just give you completely free information. We want you to come learn, start to implement, and then have success. And then when you get to the point of you're so successful, you go, I need somebody. This enterprise has gotten so big. I'd love to have somebody look over my shoulder, give me some guidance. So we have graduated where we get clients that take it to the next level. We're going to take this to a completely different level on today's show. At the closing part, we have a new giveaway. I mean, it really is free. And it's only going to be free for a temporary period of time. So hang in there with us, because we have a giveaway that's going to be brand new that we really want you to go to moneyguy.com to sign up for.
And you're going to like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in development of this for at least the last 3 months. So moneyguy.com. Let's kind of jump into this a little bit on what is driving a lot of this stuff that's going on mentally behind the scenes. And I don't know if behaviorally or human nature is that we're so competitive that we worry our resources as much as our peers. Then, here's the human nature limitations I jotted down. Peer pressure.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And again, that even starts at an early age, and I don't know that it ever goes away completely.
And here's some conventional wisdom that is awesome from a financial perspective, but you need to understand the ramifications of what this means in other aspects. How often do you hear, and there's articles, and this is true, this is actually good advice, but I want you to know that there is a dark side to it. Be the cheapest house on your street. Do you hear that? Buy the cheapest house in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
and then, so if you buy the cheapest house in your neighborhood, the thought process is, if I own the cheapest house in the neighborhood, it's more likely as things appreciate, I'm going to get dragged up with them. Now, that's great. And that is actually true. It's good. And I love you buying the cheapest house and taking advantage of that great financial concept. Here's the part I want you to understand with where peer pressure comes into play with this, is that if you are the poorest person in your neighborhood, your happiness factor will suffer.
Sure.
There have been studies on this that show that after you get past, I think the number was around $70,000, there's not as much of an incremental increase in your happiness factor on income. What comes into play then is, who is your peer group? Who are you hanging out with, and how wealthy are they? If you are the poorest person among the people you're hanging out with, you will have a more negative outlook. If you are the wealthiest person among your peer group, you're probably going to feel pretty good. And everything's all relative. I bet I will tell you, we have clients, multi-millionaires, deca-millionaires.
That's right.
And we have clients that give advice to CEOs and others, And what's funny to me is that you look at these people, especially these decamillionaires, and you're like, man, what could they have to worry about? But if you talk to them, when they're putting themselves relative to the CEOs that are getting compensation packages that might be hundreds of millions of dollars, all of a sudden, they tell you they're still poor.
They're still trying to catch up.
They feel like that. So I want you to know wealth is relative to a certain degree. Once you cross a certain boundary, it becomes relative. So the group that you keep in your circle will drive how you're happy. So
That's right.
I will tell you, and then we'll move on to the next thing. I have on purpose, because I found myself, there was some construction things going on in my neck of the woods that I was like, maybe we just need to move and get off this main street.
Right.
And I started looking at houses, and then it hit me. I was like, if you keep swimming upstream, you're going to need to buy more furniture.
That's right.
You're going to need to, what type of car does that
That's
neighbor
right.
have? I mean, there's all kind of, and we're going to talk about the psychological side of that, but I have made it a concerted effort. I'm not swimming any further upstream.
That's right.
I mean, because I want to feel very comfortable among my peer group.
That's right.
If that makes sense. The other human nature limitation, FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Oh, my goodness.
We see this one, again, all the time. This is a huge one. Because we all feel that way. You know, we talk about all the time how valuable and how important deferred gratification is. Deferred gratification. But in the back of our mind, we're thinking, but what about now? What about doing that thing that my next door neighbor, what about these other opportunities that I could be doing? Or
investing like what everybody, there's a reason.
Right.
And it's not as important now because people don't buy magazines like they used to, but Kiplinger's and others used to have magazines. It'd be like the best performing funds of 2017. And you go by, gotta go get those.
That's right.
That is the FOMO of feeling like you're missing out on those great investment opportunities. So just be mindful of that. And then the last one I'll put on here is be careful of being highly subjective to the consumer society influences. And we did a great show back in May of 2016. We probably ought to redo this one. Now that we have new visual mediums like YouTube, we ought to go back and revisit the show because we had the 3 behavioral phenomenons that impact your finances. Right. And here's the cool thing about being Southern.
There's a lot of cool things about being Southern.
You don't have high expectations that I can pronounce big words. I mean, and that's not a crack on being Southern. I actually like that people kind of underestimate us. So, but I am going to slaughter these words.
Let me go ahead and break. What that means is there are some big words that are coming, and Brian's getting himself a disclaimer if these don't come out just right. That's what's going on right now.
The Diderot Effect.
That's it. You nailed it. That's perfect.
Of course I did.
What is the Diderot Effect?
It's really it ties into what I just talked about with buying a new house. When you add a new possession, the chain reaction that can occur because of that behavior. For instance, you buy a new house, like I said, you're going to have to now go buy new furniture.
That's right.
You buy a new outfit. You might need new shoes.
That's exactly right.
The Diderot effect means that because of your consumption, it creates a behavior of chain reaction of additional consumption will occur.
It's isn't there an old adage, toys beget toys?
Toys begot more toys, for sure. I mean, that's what, if you're trying to keep score based upon your toys, man, the human nature has an insatiable appetite.
Right.
I'll just tell you that. Don't find your fulfillment from your toys because it's not going to work. Here's the one I guess I'm really making the disclaimer for. The Zeigarnik effect.
I think you did that one well too. You nailed it. Perfect.
So that's the psychological tendency to dwell on an uncompleted task rather than a completed one. Here's where this comes into play on just in the cliffhangers. When you think about watching TV, there's a reason. And I ought to do this more. I'm horrible at this. The show would be 10 times bigger if I could get this effect.
If you could do the cliffhanger.
Because you're supposed to tease, and I guess I did it today, and I said, hey, come in if you stay around to the end of the show.
You gotta get something really exciting.
But that's why shows, you notice, they always have a cliffhanger. They always leave you waiting and wondering what's going to happen next week. But where this impacts you on your finances is if you keep putting off doing your estate documents, getting life insurance for your family, it's very likely you will have those moments where you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh my God, I didn't get this done. And that it takes away from peace of mind.
That's right.
And then the last one I had here was the Pareto Principle.
That's it.
And that's really the 80-20 rule. If you haven't heard of the 80-20 rule, it just means that 80% of the stuff going on in most things, whether it's your clients, whether it's just life events going on, is noise. 20% is the the meat
That's right.
that you ought to focus on and the things. And I think that's a great segue into understanding. Let's focus on that 20% that we should focus on with keeping up with the Joneses.
And so if we're going to talk about this Jones family, we ought to talk about who they are, right? Because let's assign some definition to what the Joneses are and what's most likely going on behind the scenes.
And we're very fortunate. Sometimes I think, well, everybody knows that, but I'm like,
Right.
no, I know that because I do this for a living, and people, it's like coming to your doctor. You know, a doctor probably thinks it's not unusual that they say, okay, put on this robe, keep your underwear on, but put on this robe because I'm going to look for moles and
Right,
other
right.
things when you get your annual physical. They think that's commonplace. But if you went to your next door neighbor and they had a robe waiting for you and said, hey, put this on and I'll be in a minute, you'd be like, what in the heck is my neighbor doing here? You know, but that's kind of what we ask people about financial things constantly. So we think it's kind of commonplace, but because we work with successful people, because we ask people a lot of things, we just kind of know that this is what's going on with people and their finances. So let's talk about perspective on who these Joneses are. The first thing is when you see people who are out there spending and you go, I think I know what they make and how can they afford that? I can't afford that.
Right.
They very well could be broke and just straight up faking it. I just want you to know this because look at these stats. I want to give you some meat. I don't want this to be, well, just because Brian said it doesn't mean it's right. Let's give you some facts to support this. Remember, we've mentioned that Go Banking Rates has a study that they do pretty much every year. And the most recent one shows that 60% of Americans can't put their hands on $1,000.
They literally, if an emergency happened, there are not resources available to allow them to hit a deductible, pay for an emergency room visit, fix the heater, replace the AC. That stuff doesn't exist.
Now, I know you guys, this is one that you probably are thinking, Brian, that's ridiculous. Because you guys, you're watching a personal finance show. You're not wired like everybody else. You got some of that financial mutant stuff going on. So you're probably thinking, I got $1,000, but so you're part of that 40%, but there are a lot of people and you probably have them in your circle of people you work with, relatives,
members,
and other things like that. But 60% of Americans have trouble coming up with $1,000. Here's another one. We did our most recent big show was with Carter Thomas, one of our associates here. We call him the kind of the credit card guru of knowing things. Carter had shared that the average level of credit card debt is $16,000. Wow. I mean, that's people who are not paying it off every month. If you base that off of average median income, if you were carrying $16,000 of credit card debt, that's big. You're not paying it off. And here's the other thing I know. This guy right here is not carrying a balance on his credit card every month. He's paying it off. I know I'm not carrying a balance. I pay it off every month. That means if you got people like us that are not carrying a balance,
somebody's bringing the average up.
Somebody's got that average pushed up to 16,000. That means 16 might just be the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
There might be a lot of people out there with $30,000, $40,000 of credit card debt.
So let's combine those two, right? So a number of folks don't have $1,000 to pull, and a lot of those same folks have, on average, $16,000 of credit card debt.
Yep.
So it's just a compounding negative thing. And then what about the third one?
And here's the thing. What is the trophy to show how well you're doing?
The thing that I feel like, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, is an automobile, is a car. Somebody buys the new, the nice, the big, the fancy, the shiny car. And here's the first assumption that we always make, and I even fall victim to this. Anytime I see someone pull up in a brand new car, I say, oh, they must be doing pretty well.
Yeah. I mean,
Man, they went and
it's
bought
this
that.
consumer society we live in is that is your car. Because look, your house is a big part of it, but most people don't actually come to your house.
Right.
I mean, you drive to work, when you go to the Target or Target, wherever you're going, people don't follow you back to your house. They don't know what your residential situation is. But when you pull up, that's your calling card. That's what the consumer society wants you to see. So that's led to the stats of, at the end of 2016, the average car loan is $30,032. And that's just what they owe.
Okay.
That's the car loan. That doesn't mean the car is probably, because they had to put down something, with an average length of 68 months.
68
What
months.
I will tell you, I try to take this a step further for you guys, because I want to go deep with this stuff when we get into it. 68 months is over 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting very close to 6 years. I want to know, do these people even drive these cars that long? I mean, because that is a very vicious cycle, because we all know depreciation loves the front end of car ownership.
And if you are someone who you have this 5+ year auto loan and You change out your cars more often than every 5 years, and you're never driving a paid-for car. Let me just tell you from personal experience, they drive a whole lot better when they're paid for.
Yeah,
so you really ought to consider seeing what that feels like.
So the first thing that could be going on with the Joneses that you're all worried about keeping up with is they might be faking it. The second thing, and I thought I had some cool stats on this too. The second thing to be careful of and have perspective on when thinking about the Joneses, they may be getting outside help.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, we hear about millionaire next door principle.
Mm-hmm.
Economic outpatient care. This is when an adult is, a person is giving economic support to their adult children.
That's right.
And here's a stat that blew my mind. And this is dated as of December 11th of 2017. So this is only 4 months ago.
Right.
Here's the headline from USA Today. Nearly 75% of parents help their adult children financially. That's 3 out of 4 adult children are getting help from their parents still. That blows my mind. So when you're trying to keep up, because this is something I think this really hit me in the 20s and 30s, because you find out later, because we do this for a living, you find out that some in your peer group that are doing well, maybe they are getting that $10,000 to $15,000 annual gift from a wealthy grandparent or their parents. You're never going to be able to keep up with that. So if you were trying to fake your life to keep up with somebody who's getting an annual gift of $10,000 to $15,000, it could give you a bad perspective on what you're doing financially.
A small aside, maybe you're listening to this and you are one of those people who, you've been blessed where your parents or grandparents are gifting you assets. You should really ask yourself the question, what am I doing with that? Am I allowing my lifestyle to creep up, or am I really capitalizing on this opportunity? So that's something to kind of think about too. If you're asking yourself, am I the Joneses right now?
And I don't want this because, look, I'm a happy guy, so I don't like seeming negative, but I feel like one of the hard parts of our job is that we do have to give bad news sometimes. One of the perspectives that I always tell people when I find out they're getting outside help and stuff, I say, are you a creator or are you a consumer? Because if you are one, and I'm always impressed with children, adult children, who have successful parents who then take those level of assets to the next level.
Something else, yeah.
The Ted Turners and the others that you hear about that, because that is something that I always ask people, are you a creator or are you a consumer? Because it is sad that the vicious cycle of wealth creation is, we talk about this all the time, is that the majority of your millionaires out there are first generation.
They built it, they created it.
Second and third generation, kids and grandkids blow through it, and then we recreate this process. So let's see if, ask yourself, am I doing something to be a creator of additional wealth, or am I just consuming the resources? Right. Here's another thing about they may be getting outside help. It doesn't have to be just annual gifts. They might know, your peers, your neighbors, your friends, they might know, hey, mom and dad are doing okay. I'm going to eventually get that money. So because they know they might have an inheritance waiting on them, they don't have to prioritize saving and building that army of dollar bills like you do. And here's a stat. Let me give you a headline that I found for the article, because people thinking they're getting an inheritance. 68% of young people expect an inheritance. Okay. So that's getting close to three quarters. Yep. But here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. Yet only 40% of their parents will leave one.
So when I hear,
that's even worse. That's a compounding.
That's terrifying to me.
It is. That's
because if I'm someone who's saying, you know what, maybe I don't need to build up the 401k, maybe I don't need to fund the Roths, because I know maybe it's 10, 15, 20. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point in the future, I'm going to get an inheritance, and that's going to be my retirement plan. And then you get there, and what you thought was there isn't actually there. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
So I want you to think, just like we talk about financial independence, I want you to have an independence mentality, is that even if you come from successful parents, try to have that creator mindset that you are going to be self-sufficient, or at least use the resources to continue to grow. And I think that could really do some positive things. So we've heard the two things. We've got the people who are faking it on the Joneses. We got the people that are getting outside help.
That's right.
There's a third group of people that I wrote down in the show notes.
Okay.
It was those that are just assuming, you know what, it's all going to work out.
I want to say it's not really free spirits, but it kind of is that free spirit. I'm just not worried about it. Retirement, that's just way out there. That's in the future. I have time to figure all that out.
Living for the day. I mean,
right.
and there are people, I've had conversations where I've talked to people and I said, hey, why don't you get in the habit of just a little bit? I mean, let's just start the process of saving $25 a month or $50 a month. You heard me do the show for my 14-year-old. I mean, if you can get a teenager to start saving money, why can't you get somebody who's out there in the workforce doing it? But there are people that say, Brian, why would I do that? Why would I put off? I might not be here 2 years from now. I've actually had this answer given to me is, Brian, I don't even know if I'm going to be here 5 years from now. So I'm going to enjoy this money right now. So they have no plan. They're living more of letting life happen to them than being the lead actor. They're more of a support character than actually taking a lead role in their financial life. And usually these are the people, because what is the first thing when you see all these surveys of 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, that one of the first things they tell you in all these surveys of these older people is that, I wish I'd have started sooner.
Yep.
You always hear that. I wish I'd have started sooner. Because that person that's living for the day, living for the short term, when they get older, because more than likely the statistics show we live to a ripe old age, you have a lot of regret, because we're going to hear in a minute that if you can just let that money work for you, that army of dollar bills, getting it to work as soon as possible, much more successes in your future.
And so if you are someone listening to this and you happen to be younger, and I'm going to classify younger as if you're 40 to 45 years old or under, right? If you kind of fall into that realm, things are changing that are a little outside of your control, where maybe for your parents and grandparents, there were some backstops that might have been there that might not necessarily be there for you. And the two big ones that we're talking about are, one, Social Security, which used to be the majority of someone's retirement savings. And then also you used to go work for a company for 20, 30, 40 years, and then you get a pension. Both of those things may not be there for you when you get there.
They're on shaky ground,
That's right.
no doubt. So here's the thing. We just went through what is creating this mindset of keeping up with the Joneses, and how can people that you're looking at, and you know what you think they make, and you see the lifestyle, you see them buy the cars, the boats, the big house, and you go, how in the world are we going to do it? We just gave you the 3 ways. And I can tell you this, it is so liberating when you realize, you know what, I can control their behavior, and there might be something that I'm not aware of that's actually enabling and making that behavior. Why don't I quit wasting all that energy and focus on what I can control?
That's right.
And that's very liberating. I find that so liberating, and that's where I want to now pivot the show on where do you take your mindset, where do you take your financial behavior so that you control the things that actually make an impact.
That's right.
So we want to give you the tools to know, okay, what's the steps to inoculate myself and also get on the path of making this thing work for me?
Absolutely.
So here's the first thing we have. Take an inventory of your goals and obligations.
I think this is huge, and I think this is missed often. And every time we do a vision planning show, which you can go check out if you want to, the first step is always you kind of have to list out, what are you ultimately working towards? What are the things that are important to you? What are the things you place value on? How often do we see people who don't take that step and they kind of just feel like they're floating out there with no real direction?
In school, I always got I had a few behavioral things for talking too much, but the other thing was
Brian Preston talked too much.
I was a talker, but I was a daydreamer too. I had I think it's the attention deficit and other issues that I have. But I was, and I always tell people, and you've heard me say this on the podcast a gazillion times, a dream is not a plan until it's written down.
That's right.
And so don't be that daydreamer that's getting the disciplinary notes, sent home to the parents. Cause there's no parents to say, when you're an adult this is just your financial empire never gets built. So make sure you're taking inventory of what you need. So here's the things you need to think about. When do you plan to retire?
Yeah. And by the way, retirement today is not what retirement maybe 50 years ago meant. This doesn't mean, hey, when do I want to just stop and go sit on the beach and sip Mai Tais? We find from all the folks we work with, most folks don't have that vision, but it's when do I want to have the option and ability to do the things I want to do, when I want to do them, the way I want to do them.
That's right. Financial independence.
That's it.
So funding sources, Bo, you kind of hit on the fact that pensions, Social Securities, we need to be thinking about these things. All these ways that in the past funded your retirement might be on shaky ground. I mean, pensions have gone the way, they're extinct almost like the Brontosaurus would be. Social Security is a favorite political tool because it's constantly on shaky ground as we have this upside down demographic, shift of people are aging and other things. So that means it's all up to you. So that puts really a lot of pressure on your army of dollar bills to take this financial responsibility, have that independence mindset as soon as possible.
That's right.
So, and then let's think about this, because here's the thing about life.
It happens.
It definitely happens, and it comes at you out of left field on a Tuesday or whatever. I mean, you cannot, no matter how good your plan is, there's still things that could happen. Now, the things you can control is take into account things that might need to be planned for, like educational goals for your kids. If you want to help them out with their finances, for going to college and learning and becoming educated, you can do that. But there's also special circumstances. What if this is Autism Awareness Month?
That's right.
And y'all know I'm very passionate about this. We did a charitable giving show recently where we talked about, I even moved my whole family to a different state so that my autistic daughter could go to a school. Life happens. This thing from a financial perspective is outrageously expensive, but you know what you do as a parent? You suck it up and you take care of it and deal with it, but you need to build that stuff into your financial plan.
And the fact that we know there are things that are going to happen makes it all that much more important that we do think about those things that probably will happen. And Brian, you already said this, college planning, buying that next car. If you know that you're going to need a car in 3 to 4 years, maybe it makes sense to start saving for that now instead of one weekend just deciding, let me go get a new car. I think that's a lot of the reason why these auto loans ballooned at 68 months. It's just poor planning.
So if you have financial obligations that need to be planned for, go ahead and make sure that that's documented somewhere and take inventory of those goals and obligations. And that leads us to number 2 is don't fake success by borrowing against your future. I mean, it ties into that whole keeping up with the Joneses, because this is the crux of the matter, is that there's some basic benchmarks that you can put in your back pocket and use these things to insulate yourself from it. The first one is your housing all-in cost should be less than 25% of your income.
I'm sorry, say that again?
25% of your income.
So if I want to know, am I living within my means, I need to add up the cost of my...
That's not what your mortgage company's telling you, by the way.
No, that is not what you...
That's not what your real estate agent is telling you.
If you go to the bank and ask them how much you can afford,
Yep.
they're going to give you a different number. But you go look at the amount of your mortgage, your principal, your interest, your taxes, or maybe your rent, possibly you throw in your utilities, all the carry on your housing, and it should fall below 25% of your gross monthly take home.
That's the ideal. Now, I do want to give a little bit of an out for my 20 people in their 20s, people in their 30s. I mean, hopefully you are on a career path, or you've made some decisions where you're on an upward trajectory. And if you're in an upward trajectory, you know what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years in your life. And there's nothing wrong with you working towards where you know you're going to be. Just don't get so far out above your skis that you get yourself in trouble with the whole thing where you're faking. That's the key part. Don't fake the success. Don't buy the house for the 45-year-old version of yourself when you're not going to make those financial incomes or ability to pay these things for another 20 years. So housing all in should be less than 25% of income. This one's going to blow up that stat I said on automobiles. I like you to structure your automobiles where you can have them paid off in 3 years.
Oh, well, Brian, okay, so I'm a listener. I hear that, but I'm really good at math and I understand how money works. You're not thinking about something here, but what if the auto company is going to let me borrow money at like 0.9 or 1.9 or 2.9? Surely then I should stretch it as far as I can and go out 7 years, right?
There's nothing now. Fortunately, unfortunately, those deals are starting to disappear as interest rates are going up. But I have told people in the past, because who knows, maybe we'll be in another low interest rate environment again. I have no problem if there's no difference in a 48-month loan versus a 36 or a 60-month versus a 36. Take the longer term. However, I want you to have the car paid off in 3 years. I like you can take the longer term because maybe around Christmas or maybe around, there's periods of your time where your income, if you're a commission salesman or something like that, where income's just not level. It might have some fluctuations. It's okay to have a little flexibility on the payment, but I want you to have an internal mindset. I'm going to have this car paid off within 3 years because let's face it, really you should be buying depreciating assets with cash.
That's right.
But I'm realistic and understanding is that there's incentives and other things that it can, you don't have to do an absolute strategy on that, but you do need to have some backstops to make sure you don't get yourself in trouble. And then here's the last one, because this is an absolute. Credit cards need to be paid off monthly.
That's right.
If you can't pay your credit cards off monthly, you might need to put yourself in that stricter debt-free management system where you freeze the credit cards.
Now, look, life happens. There's a big medical bill. There's something with a house, and maybe you do have to go put something on credit cards to bridge the gap. Make it a goal to get those things knocked out. Or maybe you haven't been responsible. Get them knocked out and create that habit of getting them paid off every
You'll
month.
know. I mean, I think we all know ourselves better than we like to admit. If you know that debt's a struggle, you might have to take a much more drastic behavior with consumer debt and credit cards. I'm one of those people, I take a more balanced approach. I don't say that you should never have a credit card because I think there's a lot of responsible people. I fall in that category. It's just not a problem for me to avoid debt. But if there are people that do struggle, and I think a great deal of the population does based upon that average of 16,000, if you fall in that category, stay the heck away from credit cards.
Yep.
The other thing, so after you understand these benchmarks, these basic benchmarks, let's talk about the vision plan for success. We've done whole episodes on vision planning, but this is primarily talking about how you insulate yourself from the Joneses. So your best financial life begins with you starting, you say this, and this is the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Stephen Covey, that's right.
The Covey, start with the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind. That's right.
I mean, so that's what's going to help you. And I say, this is something I haven't done as much. I did this while I was on the trail to success early on, is I used to create cues or rewards for success.
Yeah.
Because, and I like that because it kept me on track. You know, when you're deferring some type of gratification, because let's face it, when you don't get to buy the fancy car in your 20s and 30s because you don't get that cool factor of pulling up to your buddies and going, man, look at me.
This, yeah.
So let's see, is there some coping things you can do that maybe aren't as expensive as a new car, but you could still do? There's nothing wrong if you want to put in some strategies to where, maybe there's a vacation after you cross making 6 figures, or maybe you cross when your portfolio reaches 6 figures, or your portfolio reaches $250,000. Why not go on a vacation to create something? I mean, I will tell you, that's something we are doing here at the office. As a firm, as we have continued to grow, we've created some team incentives where we're just going to take the whole firm and do a team building because I want everybody to stay on point and stay on focus. It's the same reason we do a matching for charitable contributions. I want people, there's nothing wrong with prioritizing behavior and incentivizing behavior that you want to encourage. So make sure you think about those things. Nothing wrong with creating visual cues to reward and encourage habits and discipline. We had also talked about the begin the process with the end in mind. The begin means you've grasped the concept of creating a plan. I was at my daughter's spring break, here's the thing, y'all know, anybody who's parents, why they do these spring plays. I'm either going to get laughter or people are going to be mad at me.
All right, so I haven't gotten to spring plays yet in my children's lives, so please spread some wisdom on me.
When you have your kids in school, you'll notice the day before all like Thanksgiving, Christmas, or spring, right before the big breaks, somehow they have you come get your kids around lunchtime.
Okay.
And then they take a day off early because they all want to go on spring break too, or they all want to go home for Christmas. So the way they get all the parents to come is they have the kids sing for a little bit. Remember, I have a second grader, autistic daughter. And, so we had her spring thing recently and they were doing the 3 Little Pigs.
Okay.
And do you remember what is the educational concept of the 3 Little Pigs?
Well, it was the one who built the house or with straw.
Yeah.
Then one built, oh my gosh, I do not remember the story. One built the house with straw. One built it with something else that wasn't good.
Sticks, wood.
Yeah. And then one actually built it with, was it bricks? Did pigs?
Brick.
Was it bricks?
Man, you have young kids.
No.
Are you reading?
No, we're 5 little piggies right now. We're on the toes. We haven't gotten to the actual story of the pigs yet.
So the foundation, you're correct. There's a big bad wolf who's going to huff and puff and blow these houses down. And it's right. The first one is built with straw. So, because it's easy. It's easy to build with straw.
Right.
Wood is next easiest up the scale, but then brick.
It takes some masonry there.
It's hard to blow down a brick structure. So the wolf huffs and puffs, but he can't blow it down. Well, it's the same thing. What is the building material? What is the foundation of your financial life? I hate that I had to bring back a nursery rhyme, but I think there's a reason we're reading this stuff to our kids. Is, are you building that foundation, that teachable concept for your personal finances? So let's talk about that. What does that mean when I say, are you doing your foundation? First, $1,000. You have $1,000. Can you get yourself out of that 60% of Americans that can't come up with $1,000? And if the answer is yes, if you're squarely in that 40%, are we evolving that to where we have 3 to 6 months of cash reserves? Next, are we slaying our monthly budget?
Or maybe if you're someone past budgeting, do you have a cash management plan in place?
Because that's what we want you, when you're younger, when you're getting an understanding of how personal finances work, you probably do need a budget. You need something to keep the guardrails up so that you don't stray on the line.
That's right.
It's like having a pencil with an eraser versus doing the plan with a pen. So make sure you're slaying that monthly budget, not becoming a debt zombie.
We did a whole show on that.
I mean, it really is true. I mean, and I'm giving you these terms in ways I want you to get a visual of people who are dragging one leg behind them, their skin's starting to decay because they have so much weight from this debt that it is making them actual zombies. So
if you haven't heard that one, it's The Walking Dead. Go check it out.
And then lastly, are the army of dollar bills on the path to becoming an overwhelming force? Bo, I thought, this is how nerdy. Y'all really think that this is an act. I told you that I bought a brand new financial calculator app on my phone.
You did, and I have heard all about it for the last 48 hours.
Here's what's cool about this financial calculator app that I downloaded. I'm not going to give brands because it was just one I found on the App Store. I have an Apple iPhone. Is that in addition to being a cool financial calculator, with a click of a button, it lets me pull up full amortization charts. So you can really see, and one of the coolest things about amortization charts is that you get to see the breakdown of how much is principal, how much is interest when you're doing, time value of money calculations. I love seeing an overwhelming force is that when you see your money growing upon itself, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm telling you. If you can go ahead and have that army of dollar bills, and what I mean by that, if you're a young person, you go, what does that mean to get this thing working? I want you to really start having a mindset of saving 15 to 20 to 25% of your gross income. Now, a lot of you, when you're in your 20s, I get it. You're like, 15 to 20%. I'm having a hard time putting groceries on. Don't let that put you down. Start off with 3%. Do your employer match.
That's right.
But then I want you to get addicted to the behavior that maybe your 3% turns into after your next pay raise 5 to 6%. But then maybe after your next pay raise, it's up to 10%. You can aspire to have 15 to 25%. The 15 is kind of a basic.
That's right.
It used to be 10, just if y'all want a history lesson. It used to be 10 when we all had pensions. Nobody has pensions anymore, so that kicked it up to 15 to 20. And then if you want to become that hyper accumulator that's really building the empire, that's why we put the 25%. I put that in there to be aspirational on purpose. So plans can also be the first step on changing the way your brain processes this world that we live in. Remember, you have forces all around you that are telling you, consume, go ahead, do it. This is the way you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a new car. You're supposed to go do this bigger house. You're supposed to go buy your furniture and not pay for it for 10 years by paying $10 every 6 months or something. I mean, these are the commercials that are being thrown on us all the time.
If you have that plan in place, it can shift that mindset.
It does. And here's why I want you to have that mindset. And I want you to think about the way our brain works is that you're trying to create habits don't happen overnight. Habits take, 66 days? I know people think it's like 14
It used to be 27. It's not. I think it's like 90 almost.
You want to just have a mindset that somewhere between 60 to 100 times of doing a behavior before it becomes a habit. What is happening when you first go down a new behavior? Think about it going down a path in the woods. There's probably thorns. There's going to be logs in the path. But as you keep doing the process, it becomes more well-worn. That's exactly what's going on with your brain. You're creating a path that is becoming more well-worn and becomes a habit. And once you have that habit, it is creating those behaviors that's going to reward you and become into that empire mindset.
That's right.
And that's what I know that you guys But here's the thing, and we talked about this, Bo, is that so many of our clients come to us, and they are savers, they're builders. We have to almost help them unbuild their savers mentality.
That's it, because you spend an entire career, an entire lifetime doing it, getting there, building. It is hard to flip that switch, and so this cuts both ways. But you can't flip the switch until it's the right time to flip the switch.
So a lot of you are probably sitting out there in the audience go, this is good. Brian has given me some things to work on. But I feel like, and this is where historically I would end the show right now. I tell you thank you. But I want to take it a step further. This is where this abundance cycle is going to another gear. We're putting it in high gear, putting some NOS on it. Think about it.
NOS.
If you're a tuner.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
I want to introduce the 30-minute-ish financial plan.
Oh, well, Brian, we've done this show before. Are we about to do another podcast right now?
We've done a show. We've done the show on the 30-minute financial plan. But have we ever created it, structured in a way where it has some worksheets, it has templates, where it has accountability? No, we have not. We are talking about blazing. Well, we are knocking thorns. I basically have a machete, creating a path. You're moving the logs because you're a little stronger than me, but we are trying to create the behaviors that's going to make that well-worn path that builds an empire in your life. So here's the scoop on this thing, guys. I want you to go to moneyguy.com. And then I want you to understand also, this is a limited time offer. We have not figured out how long we're going to make this thing limited, because this is the first time we've ever done it. We want to get our audience's input on how we can improve this thing. Plus, we want to know what are things that you want to learn. Mm-hmm. So we're making it free for a limited period of time. So all you have to do is go to moneyguy.com. You're like, okay, what's he selling me? Remember, abundance cycle is not selling anything, because we just want you to come, learn, grow, and then have success. And at some point, the success will get to a level where the enterprise needs a professional opinion. Right. That's the only thing we ask, is that when you remember who helped you plant the seed to the great live oak of your finances, it was us.
That's it.
So that's why this thing is brilliant, is that you're going to be able to grow together. So here's what you're going to get from this 30-minute financial plan. Let's kind of go through this. I want you to have the basics of setting up your financial plan and how to start training your brain to have a long-term mindset. That long-term mindset is more powerful than most people realize. How to apply the best financial planning principles to your personal finances to put your army of dollar bills to work ASAP. Mm-hmm. So we're going to help get on that type of plan. And how to reach financial independence and live that financial life that you have dreamed of. Everybody's dreamed of. But very few people have actually created the plan and the steps to make it actually become a reality. And this is, as I've already told you, this ties it all to the Money Guy and the Abound Wealth Abundance cycle that we've created, where information wants to be free. It doesn't cost us anything extra for you to go download this cool, strategy. It's essentially, it's an ebook. Let's just say it's an ebook that we're also, it's a course in the fact that we're going to send you reminder emails of concepts you should be working on for, I think,
6 weeks.
I think we'd set it up for 6 weeks, just to kind of give you nudges to keep that behavior going. And then we're hopefully going to see you grow into the financial life that you really want. Now, this is the inaugural journey, our offering. So we need your feedback. That's the catch, I guess, if you say, what's the catch? After you go through this, I want you to give us some feedback. Yep. We want to know how can we improve it? Are there things that we need to focus on even more so? You guys, we've been doing this. We're in our 13th year of doing the Money Guy show. We have improved so many processes off of you guys. That's you have given us feedback. I really do call you the Money Guy family for a reason, is that I think we can all learn off each other. So since this is, you're new and you're ground floor on this, we're giving it to you for free. But our ask is, tell us how we make it even better after you make it through the process.
So if you're listening to this, who does this make sense for? If you're listening right now, am I a candidate for this 30-ish minute financial plan? If you're someone just starting out on your financial journey, this is a great fit for you to get your
It's going to be a hookup.
Yep. If you've been on your financial journey for 10 or 15 years and you're starting to build assets, but you want to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and all of the T's are crossed, this is a great fit for you. If you're someone who's built up some pretty substantial wealth at this point and you're trying to determine, well, is it time for me to take it to the next level? Do I need to kind of graduate there? this is a great fit for
I think
you.
it's going to let you know if you have the basics covered.
And if you're someone who you are close to financial independence, but you're a do-it-yourselfer and you just, you're never going to hire somebody, but you want some resources and some templates and some things to help you, it's a great fit for you. So if you have a pulse, this 30-minute financial plan is right for you.
So I think that's a good way. Remember, I said we would have ended this show a few minutes ago without giving you actual tools. Now we've actually created an ebook that is going to be your tools. And this is going to be something, if you find value in this, I want you to immediately go share. After you look at it and you see the offering, share it with your relatives. Share it with your friends. Because we do want to spread the good news of good financial management. That's why I love the abundance cycle. The more good stuff we do for you guys, it seems like the more reward and the bigger this thing keeps growing.
That's right.
So let me brag on the show a little bit. We started doing this show 13 years ago.
Right.
And this thing was pretty rough in the beginning, and we've gotten better and better. And it started off as a podcast.
That's right.
And we've built a pretty good industry-wide, we're considered, one of the better podcasts out there. We get a lot of recognition on that. Sure. And y'all know that we're hitting all-time highs. I will tell you guys, we're hitting all-time highs on our monthly downloads and views. But here's a phenomenon that I think is truly incredible, and I want to thank you guys for it, is that we started this YouTube channel less than 6 months ago. And I got to tell you, it's amazing to me that within 6 months, we have an audience now on YouTube.
Took us years to create.
It took us 13 years to get this audience on the podcast. It's 2/3 the size of what we have on the podcast already on YouTube. So you guys, from a connection standpoint, what I always like to visualize, and it gives me goosebumps, it gets me worked up just to think about it, is that if I get the visual of what you guys all look like who consume this on a monthly basis, we're selling out stadiums.
That's right. Yeah.
Actually, we'd have to do multiple shows. Yeah. And that blows my mind that you guys keep coming back and and hopefully you can sense we just try to give it away. Mm-hmm. I know that everybody in this financial field, you worry, what's the angle? What's the catch? And look, we have motivations. No doubt we love connecting with clients all over the country, but this is an educational platform. Yeah. We did this with the purpose originally of helping people who didn't qualify to work with a financial advisor. And then it's turned into where it allows us to not only educate and create that abundance cycle where people can learn, apply, grow, and then hopefully reach a level of success that they want. So it's evolved over time. But still, the crux of the purpose of why we even started this was to become an educational platform. And it's so fulfilling. Yep. I still am that kid. I used to, as I said earlier in the show, I was the kid that got the behavioral notes sent home for daydreaming and thinking about things. Now I still get to daydream when I'm driving to work in the morning or whatever, but now I'm daydreaming about what's things that we can use with the Money Guy family and the Abound family to help you guys become better with your finances. Yep. And that's why this 30-minute-ish financial plan is the first of this abundance cycle of additional things we're going to give you.
When you say, Brian, that this started as a passion project.
For sure.
And now it's turned into a purpose project, right? It kind of gives you, you're able to focus more time, more attention, more energy, more effort on this thing that used to be a side thing that now is kind of like a headline main thing.
And you guys are so good. When we see you, we've had a few public moments, and then we've also, when we go to conferences and speak and things like that, you guys are always so good to us. But I want you to know that this is still, even though we've been doing it for 13 years, I still feel like we got this so much. This is still the beginning, and we're going to continue to expand upon this whole giving strategy that we have. You'll probably notice Bo has something pretty unique right in front of him. In addition to our brand new ebook, go to moneyguy.com to check it out. You're going to see we have these 20-ounce tumblers that are laser. I feel like I always do it, laser etched.
No, but okay, give them the disclaimer, right? There's a reason this doesn't work well for you.
Oh, guys, everything always turns out to be on the rear end of the joke. Is that I got this for my coffee because I realize I drive to work every day and I make a cup of coffee on my way in, and it's the same cup that my employer gave me right out of college. Right. So this tumbler is over 20 years old. I was like, man, this is a great thing that this employer gave me. My first employer, my first job, that I'm still using this thing 20 years later. What if I could create this for our listeners? Yeah. So I said, we're going to get these tumblers. And I made my first cup of coffee, and I was like, this is going to be outstanding. And then I took a drink, and I burned my mouth because the problem with these things, when you know how these tumblers work, is that they vacuum seal.
Yeah.
They don't let ice melt, and they don't let things cool.
It
So
kept your coffee too hot.
if you're a wimp like me, you can't use it for coffee. Now I've turned it into, I'm going to keep using my 20-year-old coffee mug, and I'm going to use it for ice water. But some people like hot coffee all the time.
If you prefer your coffee hot, then you are gonna get it. And so, what'd you say, Brian? If you're someone who wants one of these, go out there, give us your email address. We're gonna find ways to get these in
We're
your
not
hands.
selling them. I don't want to sell them because everybody can get tumblers.
Right.
But it is going to be a way. We're going to use this as something that we can connect with our audience as giveaways. So that's once again, it's part of the abundance cycle. Is it's free. Big thing is that this is a new chapter. Is that we're going to create educational tools in addition to giving you audio and visual. We're going to give you actual tools with these ebooks and other things that you can use to implement your financial life and just make it go beyond common sense that much further and put those army of dollar bills working. So thank you. Please contact us, on the Money Guy or Abound website. You can go to the contact us page. We love hearing from you. I'm going to be here in less than a week again because we love bringing you content now, not just every other week. We're weekly. And if you go to YouTube, we're coming out with content 3 times a week.
Right.
So you got to go check this stuff out. moneyguy.com, as well as connect with us out there on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We love our audience, and we just want you to take advantage of all this great stuff that we're putting out there. I'm your host, Brian Preston.